Liberty.
Public comment. I'll try to figure out how to do this. You can either raise your hand or do something. Okay, I do not believe I see any public comment. Moving on to reports. Superintendent John is not here, I don't think.
I think Rick just raised his hand, Gary. I don't know.
Oh, Rick, did you raise your hand? Can't hear you.
Your
Can't hear
audio's
you.
off.
Hear me now, Gary?
Oh, there you go. You moved. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure. You asked about public comment?
Yeah.
Regarding?
That's just a standard.
Oh, okay.
Anybody can have public comment. We were going to address your thing in correspondence, your issue, since that came up as a correspondence,
Okay.
if that's okay.
Well, I'd still like to, when we get to that point, I would like to comment on it if I could.
Actually, it's public comment. So if you want to read the letter now, or
Well,
what's your preference?
does everybody have a copy of it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we all received a copy.
Yeah, we all saw it, read it.
Okay. Well, I mean, I guess the bottom line is, folks, is that, you know, we want to know what the intentions are as far as this the issue at hand, and kind of take it from there. You know, is there a plan to move the rocks? Is there a plan to put gravel down? Is there a plan to put a split rail fence up? You know, basically that's what we're asking.
Well, I would say there's an intention to move the rocks. I wouldn't quite say we have a plan at the moment, but that is certainly something we want to have done. As for the, let's see, what was the other one? The split rail fence. I mean, as I mentioned in the response to you, what some people have done is, he's still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Is
I'm
there?
here. Yeah, I'm here.
What other people have done is they put a line of pine trees or cedars or something for privacy. Other people who border the paths.
Of course, there's a lot of people that have paths that don't put any borders up at all too. So, you know, I don't think it's the village's responsibility to put a border up on somebody's property. I think if the property owner wants to do that, I think that's something that they're more than able to do. But as you noted in your letter, it's a narrow path to begin with. So for the village to be putting up split rail fences and things like that, in my opinion anyway, seems to be not something that we've done historically, nor something that we should probably be making a practice of going forward. Nothing about a delineation was put in the PDD or anything like that. It was meant to be a trail from. So that's my opinion. Feeling of the rest of the board is, but
Yeah, understood. We understand that it was in the PDD, but then again, I think that there's what looks good on paper sometimes doesn't necessarily translate. And I mean, we basically, and there's been trustees that have said it, that, you know, could there have been some outreach or some overreach with doing this? Number one, as far as when it was in development, and secondly, that some people feel as though that they're walking into people's backyards, and effectively you are, kind of, and because it's just not delineated and there's not a very, there's not a large amount of room there, as you guys know. So, look, we don't want a big, huge fence up and saying, do not enter, but, by advertising it, you're, and putting in gravel, which I think personally, and I think that others agree that, that could, it could devalue some of the property value between my neighbor and ourselves. Would somebody would want to see a nice, rolling grass, or would they want to see ugly gravel? If from a value standpoint. So, personally, I wouldn't want to see a split rail fence. I wouldn't want to see any fence. In worst case scenario, we leave it status quo and you move some rocks. That's.
But
I
if
think,
I,
go ahead,
if
Tom.
I could weigh in, could I ask Gary, because I can't see everybody, is Peter here and is Heidi here?
Peter will not be here tonight and Heidi is here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm here. If you do gallery view, you might be able to see.
Oh, now I see it. I don't know how to do this stuff,
Probably
Heidi.
on speaker.
So, but
You're
one of my
doing okay,
questions,
Tom.
one of my questions was Peter in an email raised something that I hadn't heard before, which he said the PDD had something to do with a potential path, that it wasn't set in stone. I guess if that's a poor pun, that there would be a path there, that it was a potential. Do we know that for sure?
If you look at the PDD maps, that is included in the lands to be conveyed to the village of Round Lake, along with the other trails.
Okay.
Very clearly delineated.
And if you look at the Belmonte designs for the plat too, like what everybody saw when they were buying the properties, because I looked at houses over there, it was also clearly marked as a trail, all those details also. So
Yeah, and
Okay.
if I could, and I agree with you, Matt, it was delineated. And again, this is something that I put in my letter, Karen and I put in our letter, that we from what I understand, our neighbors were kind of led to believe the same thing, that this was a piece of property that was going to be access for the village to go in and do maintenance on the culvert if need be. That's what we were told when we bought the property. And I know that I believe our neighbors got a similar story.
Well,
So-
that's certainly one use for it.
Well, yeah, but that's,
But that's not the exclusive use for it. I mean,
If I might just continue a little bit, I don't think you heard that from anybody in the village. You heard that from the developer or the developer's representative.
that's great. That's correct,
Yeah.
Tom. That's
Okay,
right.
all right. The other thing, and I don't know how the rest of the board feels about this, but I feel that this has become a fairly complicated issue, and I don't see any reason why we can't simply dead end the trail at the border of the development and detour the walkers over to the bike trail without even going into the development. I mean, that makes perfect sense to me.
if I can go back to the master plan, the Round Lake master plan that we adopted fairly recently, page 8 discusses greenways. A greenway is a linear open space established along a natural corridor, such as a stream, valley, or overland, scenic road, or other route. Number 3, an open space connector linking parks, nature reserves, cultural features, or historic sites with each other and with populated areas. The intent in this is clearly to encourage these kind of things, and the Peck Ave path is by definition a greenway. On page 20 of the master plan, most compatible with the goal of preserving the rural characteristics of this sub-district, which includes Griffin's Ridge, is the development of nature trails and associated areas of public access among all areas of the village. That would include from Griffin's Ridge to through Peck Ave to the northern part. There's a few more I could go on with the open space
Yeah.
plan, but the intention when they were doing the PDD was to have these connections. And
But
also,
But how many
for the last week at least, the Zim Smith has been impassable. But
I know.
I have been walking my dog through the Peck Ave trail.
yeah,
Zim
and,
Smith
but
is just a sheet
it's
of ice.
fairly typical of the winter. But, you know, I mean, I'm just, I'm looking at those photos, for example, and there's not a lot of space between those houses. I don't think you'd get an awful lot of use if you paved it, or otherwise delineated it as a trail. And we also have 3 other ways in and out of Griffin's Ridge. And I'm not trying to,
Two of those
know,
ways, two of those pathways are not really covered in our master plan or the open space because they don't really lead to the village. They lead to county property, which is
right.
So this
Yeah,
is
but-
this is the one I'm most
It's
concerned.
just, and I'm gonna drop this because I don't get a sense that anybody would want to do it.
Well,
But let me just, okay, I'll let Heidi go, and then I may make a motion just to see where it goes.
well, I don't know. Tina, do you want to say something?
I've been going back and forth on this, since it came up, just the pros and cons on both sides. But, the Quiet Woods, the Peck Avenue path, it clearly ends where it becomes overgrown. So, I don't think any of us want to invest all of the time and money to complete that path all the way through. It's just going to draw more people, which is going to aggravate the situation of people wandering into the private property. I think it's a great path that it goes, does go up to the Zim Smith. I don't think putting in pavers and stone and all of that in the yards is going to benefit anything. The other thing is, I don't think closing the trail is going to do anything either, because the people that are walking through there, they're going to continue to walk through. There's no enforcement to, say that they can't. Clearly they see, because as I, from the pictures, it looked like I was walking in somebody's backyard. I was like, oh, so even if it was a designated path, I think the only thing we can do, if we, as Rick said, move the boulders so it's a clearer indication of where you're supposed to enter, and possibly put up a sign that says, please, go down the middle if you're going into Griffin's Ridge. Either, don't wander onto private property, just take a straight path, something to tell them, encourage them to not wander around on people's private property. I don't think we should try to improve the path to add more traffic. I think there's plenty of ways into Griffin's Ridge. I never even knew that path existed, and I've lived here for 6 years until this whole subject came up.
Yeah, the other thing that I'd like to mention is that, prior to going over the culvert, which is another whole issue of safety and liability for that matter, because that culvert is not designed or structured for safe walking across it. It just isn't. There's no railings on it, and I think for New York State, any building over a waterway of that such, I think there's more involved in it than just putting a culvert over it. But even besides that, prior to that culvert, there's a path that turns west and goes right back onto the Zim Smith. So you can still enjoy the Quiet Woods coming through Peck Avenue, and then take a right and it brings you onto Zim Smith. And if somebody wanted to come into the development, they can come down the main entrance of the Zim Smith, which is just, a couple hundred feet down the path of the Zim Smith, and then they can come right back in,
Yeah,
So-
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying, I don't think
No, no, I know,
anything
I
we
know.
do in here is gonna change. The people that are coming on your property are just not respectful. So I don't
Well-
think anything we do is gonna change that, other
No,
than
no,
maybe
I-
trying to encourage them.
You're right. And like I said, I'm not looking for, we're not looking for a big wall to be put up or anything like that. You know, and I'm not going to speak for Caroline and Ross next door, but I think they feel the same way. And I would suggest maybe the mayor and others maybe reach out to them and get their feedback. But they are a big part of this because they're on the other side of it. You know, we just, you know, we maintain it, we fertilize it, we mow it, we take care of it. And if anybody has been on it during the summer months, I think you'll attest it's beautiful. It's green. It fits. Okay. Putting gravel down through it and everything, it's just not going to look nice. It really isn't, because there's only 15 feet of 15 feet of space between our properties and the 15-foot walkway, if you will. So that's all we're asking. You know, worst case scenario, you move a couple rocks and you leave it as it is. That's what we're asking. You know, if you could possibly, you know, see to it that maybe a sign gets put up, as you had mentioned, Tina, that would be helpful. You know, prior to coming onto the property or coming through the two properties, that would be helpful, I think. You know, we deal with loose dogs, people not leashing their dogs, and kids running on our property. And you know, I've said this for 2 years now. It's just a liability and it's a safety issue. And I would just appreciate the consideration of the board to take into consideration that, you know, these are real concerns that we have based upon experiences over the last 2 years. And you know, I just think that should outweigh a non-essential type of path that you're talking about doing. That's all.
Katie?
Heidi, did you want to talk
Yeah,
first?
I mean, I do understand the point, the original point of connecting the development to the village. And I think it does. That path is really beautiful for a while. When it gets to your backyard and your neighbors, the pile of rocks, maybe those should be moved around a little bit, but then it really doesn't look like a path anymore. And I don't know that trying to shoehorn a path in there, it was really very narrow. And I think when we were talking about a fence last time to delineate the path, I was like, well, that makes sense. Then people aren't walking on his property. But when you go through there, it's really very narrow. I mean, I think it would look ridiculous if you had, you know, a fence on one or both sides. But and I didn't notice what it would take to get to the Zim Smith, if that's already there or not
Yeah,
there.
it's already there. It's been a path that has been there for a very long time, just like this one is. And
I mean, I
Well,
think it would have
It's
been
where all the
nice.
teenagers used to party
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
up through there,
Yeah.
seriously.
Hobos were living there. I think, you know, I think it would have been nice to have another path there, but I just, you know, where the gravel is, that the bigger one, you know, that's so much more space. You know, it's obviously looks like it should be there at this point, but this one, I don't know. I just feel like it's being shoehorned in. And
Also, there's another house that is going to go up by that Y. So if that
Yeah.
owner has the same issue, you know, what do we do then? So
well, at least the
Yeah.
path already exists, you know.
that's a wider path, though.
it won't be when that house.
And
is-
I just want to add a couple comments before if Tom's going to bring a resolution or whatever. The the entire village is filled with these types of right-of-ways, including my house. And if anybody has not been to my house, I highly recommend you come by, and you can walk right down in front through my yard, in between my yard. It's a paper street. There's no delineation. It's a public right-of-way. You can walk right through. My property lies on, it's even worse than yours, Rick, because my property actually lies on both sides of the path. Anybody can walk right through it. If you're going to Mount Morris, you can walk in between the Coleman's house. Again, it's a very narrow entrance. This is the character of Round Lake. Griffin's Ridge was built with small lot sizes, houses with a certain character, and the entire idea was to incorporate this subdivision into the village of Round Lake. There are only 2 entrances from the core of the village into Griffin's Ridge. One of them is Cleveland Ave, and which, by the way, people wanted that dead ended also. And the other one is Peck Extension. And I agree that there, we need to do something to move the boulders, because I think that would definitely improve the situation. But in terms of people accidentally wandering onto other people's property, or stray dogs, or any of this other stuff about liability, this is almost everywhere in the village has these issues. I've had stray dogs in my yard. My dog has encountered stray dogs. I've had people probably take a foot off of the village path into my property. It happens all the time. I understand that, because that's why I chose to live in this community. It's a community where people see each other on the streets, where people sit on their front porches and wave, where people see people, walking through their yard. That's part of living here in Round Lake. And so for me, I don't see why we should grant you any exception when other people have been living with similar situations to the way that your house has been constructed for absolutely years. Again, if you want to make some delineation on your property to clearly mark out where your property line is, I have no problem with that. But in terms of eliminating a trail or right of way, it's just, to me, it's part of the character of the village that we maintain these links. And I don't think rerouting it onto the Zim Smith is really what that's about. I think we can improve it. I think we can make it, a little bit more likely that people don't wander into your yard by moving the boulders. But other than that, I'm very much.
But how are you going to? But
Let me just finish my
boulders,
comment, and then you can talk.
Sure.
I'm very much opposed to cutting it off or dead ending it or anything like that, because to me, you guys are part of our community. The Griffin's Ridge is part of the village of Round Lake, and that's the west side of the village. That's the access point to Griffin's Ridge, and then on Cleveland on the east side of the village. And so, to me, it's part of the symmetry of the design of the subdivision. It was there from day one. I don't think personally, Heidi, that it was shoehorned. It looks totally like other parts of the village to me, where people walk through each other's yards, and it's just a paper street. In this case, it happens to be a trail, but it's no different than a lot of other parts of the village. And again, that's part of the character of the village. That's part of where we live. I don't have a problem with people walking by my house. I'm not scared to see other villagers, walking through. I wave to them. I say hi. I'm not worried about crime happening on my paper street.
I agree with you.
Hang on. Matt, could you take over a sec? I gotta go get a power cord for my.
Yeah, you take
Okay,
over.
so-
Well, you might need
Matt,
to.
Rick, just
Yeah,
hang on a
go
sec, because we're
Yeah,
trying
go ahead,
to,
Heidi.
I think we know where you stand, Rick, but
Yeah.
there isn't a path there. I don't know why the other places have a path. They have a path, or they have a road.
Right.
And why
I guess
how did it get to this point?
There's no path through.
There was a path there until the construction started, and it has faded away. But I have walked that dozens and dozens of times past the culvert and into the woods. And if those rocks are moved, which is the reason that I no longer go all the way through, then that path is going to reappear. It doesn't require any construction or expense by the village. It will simply come back. It was there before. And that right-hand turn that was discussed from Peck Avenue extension onto the bike trail is less well-defined than that old path was. I'd like to also recall the fact that when this development was being considered, the single greatest issue for the Village Board of Trustees was the integration of this new construction into our whole community. And this path was discussed a number of times. It was not an afterthought. It was not a footnote. It was a big deal. And it has been frustrated by the current conditions. And I think that, you know, leaving aside gravel or paving or anything else, as long as those rocks are moved and there's some sort of delineation so people know where to walk so that they're staying off of the neighbor's property, then you're going to find that path being used by a lot of people. Again, it is also the most direct path into the village and to the post office.
May I speak now? Just a couple of points to Matt's side of it is, you know, you had mentioned stray dogs. No, we don't have stray dogs, and yes, stray dogs do happen. I'm talking about people walking their dog through the quiet woods off a leash, and then that dog is just running free through the backyard. And it happens often, more often than I can count over the course of the last 2 years. So that's a concern. You know, children wandering off with their parents onto our property, that you know, in our backyard. I don't know, Matt, I've never been to your property. I don't know if people have the ability to get into your backyard, or maybe it's just in front. Well,
if you like, I could show you. I'm sitting on the window, right? It probably is a little bit too. I highly recommend you come up here, and you're more than welcome to walk through anytime you.
Yeah. Well,
I'd recommend also, you know, visiting other parts of the village, because you seem to think that this is a unique situation to you and your neighbor, and it really isn't. This is not an accident, and this is not a liability issue. This is, to Tom's point, this is an integral design of how the village was designed and how the subdivision was integrated into the village. So this is not it's not an accident. It's not an inconvenience. It's part of developing the community that we have. There's a reason why Round Lake is a unique community, and it's because of the fact it's walkable, because of the fact we have these trails, because of the fact we happen to bump into each other all the time. And again, I feel very passionately about this. I don't think it's an insignificant or minor thing. I think it's really important that we keep that connection open. And you know, again, ultimately it's going to come down to a board decision. But I just want to go on the record to say, as long as I'm here on the board, I will never vote to restrict that. I will make it more, you know, again, we've talked about it 100 times now, but moving the boulders and delineating it, absolutely fine. But you know, that's just how I feel, Rick. And again, I think you've raised your concerns multiple times about liability. I don't think they hold water, because these types of issues are the same issues all over the village. We have the same liability policy we've always had. We take these, you know, our insurer takes all these things into consideration. And so liability wise, it's really not a liability at all to have, you know, it's so, you know, again, I guess I've said my piece. Everybody knows where I stand on it. I appreciate, you know, you bringing the concerns up. I think we could probably make things work better, but that's kind of where I'm at.
I guess
Where-
I have
why are the
I have
boulders
two quick
there?
points I'd like to make. One is that the cutoff heading towards the Zim Smith is in worse shape than going straight. I know that because I walk it a couple times a day. I've got to duck under trees, go over stumps, and there's icy roots. So it would be easier to go straight using the path.
well, but with
And I
the
forgot other
investment,
point. So,
understood, with the investment that you were going to put into moving rocks and what have you, maybe that could be put into trimming back some things and
Moving
making that
rocks
more
is not going to
clear.
be our investment. That will be Mr. Amador's investment.
You mean Minister Belmonte?
Investment.
Okay, understood.
Karen,
So,
can I make a comment? I ended up coming in late because I couldn't hear anything, but just a couple of things. I know Rick had already mentioned that we were misinformed about this path. That's not anybody's fault. It's not the board's fault. However, one of the things that surprises me is those boulders have been in that spot since we looked at this lot, and we were told that path was strictly an access path for the village. If that path was so important to so many people, why is it now that there's just a discussion about moving those boulders? Those boulders have been there for over 3 years.
And I've been asking for them to be moved for about a year, but it hasn't crept up on Mr. Belmonte's priority list.
Yeah, Karen,
But
we've
those
already,
boulders have been there for
Yeah.
3 years.
I know,
Yeah, Karen-
I've walked over them numerous times.
yeah, Karen's upstairs, I'm downstairs. So Karen, we already kind of touched on that. So it's something that, you know, as Attorney Peterson said, that, you know, at one point they weren't there. And then, you know, while it was being developed, the developer put them there. But, you know, I guess more importantly, I understand where you're coming from about keeping it as an open community. I think there's enough access from, you know, the village to the Zim Smith, and then through the other paved one down the road there. I forget the name of that what's the name of that road?
Cleveland.
Cleveland. Thank you. Cleveland. So, and, you know, we're just, we understand that you're covered from the liability standpoint for the village, but it still increases our liability. And from a safety perspective and a liability perspective, having people on our property, a child gets hurt, someone's dog off a leash, you know, comes by and runs in our backyard while we're barbecuing and bites somebody or something. I mean, we're just trying to mitigate some of the risk here. That's all we're trying to do. And so if the board feels as though, you know, strongly enough that they need to keep that path that is very narrow, so be it. But you know, move some rocks, but don't put gravel there. I mean, it just that doesn't make any sense. It's beautifully manicured and it's green, and I mean, and it could in fact devalue our property to some
Right.
degree.
So-
I still hold true to that.
So if you know, I mean, I have heard this before. I was not on the board when, I think, when that was first developed, but I have heard this issue before, that it was really important to people developing it to make sure the Griffin's Ridge felt a part of the village, and, you know, and that is one of the two major accesses. It doesn't feel like an access right now. I don't know why the boulders have been there all this time. But if we move the boulders and don't, and allow people the straight walkway there, but don't put gravel down, will you feel better about it?
Yeah, absolutely, we will. But we don't want to advertise it either. I mean, if people know about it, then they know about it. But, you know, increasing traffic is something that we really don't want to do because of the increased liability. You know,
I don't think we're going to put it on the Facebook page, Rick. I think you'll be all right. I mean,
well,
yeah,
hey, look,
I mean, I won't put a sponsored ad out. I promise you. But yeah, and there's paths in the village. Again, I would hazard a guess that there's very few people that have moved into the village in the last 10 years that know that there's a paper street that goes through my yard. There are people that have lived here 40 years that do know. So, and I think the same few people tend to walk Peck Ave. I don't think it's a highly trafficked area, and I don't think moving the boulders will continue to make it more trafficked. I just think it'll make it a little bit easier. And then some people that maybe used to walk that path but can't anymore due to mobility issues might feel free to start using it again. I think that's, you know, one of the benefits of doing it. But I don't see, you know, the simple case of moving. I agree with you. I wouldn't want to see it gravelled either. I think it should just be a grass, you know, just like I have through my yard. Just you know, it looks like part of the yard. I like you. I mow it. I shovel it, you know, so, you know, I think that's a reasonable happy medium. If that's a good, you know, that's a good way to at least start the conversation, see where it goes from there.
Yeah, I mean, I just,
Rick,
that's
can
the
I just
one
add
thing
one
that-
more thing. We
Yep.
could, you mentioned about the cutoff heading west.
Yeah.
We could certainly put some energy into improving that, so it looks more inviting as a
Okay.
turning point. Because it
And-
is
and-
a little tricky right now to navigate it.
Okay, understood. That's appreciated. Thank you. The one thing that, I mean, for the sake of the village and being a taxpayer, this affects me as well and being a resident, is that, the crossing of that culvert and it not having railings and what have you on it. I mean, that's a safety concern for children and for me, maybe more mature folks that don't have the balance they used to, me being one of them. That could be a concern. And when that's covered with leaves and debris, natural debris, it can be a little deceiving. So that's something that needs to be taken into consideration. And I don't think it's as easy as putting up just a railing. So that's some.
You don't even need to, you don't even need to step on it to cross. You can just go down the little creek bed and up the other side. So.
But that's when there's no water run.
Yeah,
Yeah.
No, because there's never water running on the left-hand side because it goes underground at that point. That's what the culvert
That's
was
correct.
put in for.
That's
So there
correct.
is a way to, I mean, an old fat 68-year-old guy like me can do it, so I'm not terribly worried about.
I think the fence idea, which we were talking about before, or maybe I even said it at one of the meetings, well, why don't we, delineate with a fence? I can't, having walked it now, I can't see that at all. I think that would be unattractive.
Agreed.
I mean, the only thing I was thinking is, how you can have just a single small paver like this that can easily be mowed over if there was just, I can't think
We,
of the words. I'm
we
sorry.
may,
You know what?
but do you know what, Tina? It's a good idea. However, I am actually considering putting up a green screen to some degree, meaning arborvitaes or something.
Oh, okay.
We've got, we're thinking about it. But there's a huge deer population, which is kind of cool. But not so cool in the summer when they come and graze on your landscaping. So, but
Even in the winter, they love arborvitae. It's like candy.
well, yeah, but there's certain species like the green giant arborvitae is
Okay,
a
so
little more deer
you're
resistant.
thinking of putting some type of barrier up that
Yeah,
wouldn't
yeah,
necessitate
so-
us having to put something down. Okay.
Yeah, we're Karen and I are discussing it, and we haven't really decided yet, but because we don't want the encroachment feel. We don't want that, we want it open. But we just really don't want to see gravel be put in or a fence be put in or
We gotcha.
yeah.
So if we can
So-
wrap this up, it sounds like leaving it green, putting signage to indicate, asking people to respect private property.
And put the
improving
dogs on the leash.
Cut off to the
Yeah.
west.
Yeah.
Can we get,
Move
Move
the
the rocks, move the
Yeah.
boulders.
that was what can we put a fire under Mr. Belmonte to get those rocks moved?
Yeah, but here's Matt, here's something that you
Yeah.
may want to consider is that because eventually Peter is going to come through the back of our yard and dig 12 feet down all the way through that easement, that would be the time to have him do it because he'll have the machine right there and it wouldn't cost
Okay.
anybody anything.
Okay.
Well,
Alrighty.
well, if I could just say a couple things. Originally, I was going to make a motion to close it off and detour everybody to the west and to the bike trail. To me, and I still feel this way, to me, it's a fairly narrow space and it seems pretty intrusive. I guess if I was living in one of those houses and I had some people walking through at, any time during the day, I guess I'd feel a little exposed in some way. But I'm not getting a sense here or that there's a lot of pushback for that idea that maybe I agree. Matt has argued passionately, and I do understand that there are some places in the village where you literally go by Paul Blocks, and you can walk right through there. And even Tina, on the side of Tina's, you can walk right down that little path into the back of Lake Ridge.
Bridge.
And I'm very familiar with what Tom Peterson's talking about on the what used to be before the development. You could walk right through those woods in a couple places, get right over from the bike trail into straight across. You could see Cleveland Road through the woods, and it was a very narrow path, and we all probably remember that. So the only thing I'd like to do, I agree with everybody. I think maybe I'll just drop that idea. I think I'd rather encourage people to walk down the path and at least give them the option of walking west to the bike trail. And whether that entails just trimming back a little bit of the trees and whatnot, I don't think that would be a big deal. And then whatever you guys want to do, working it out through the narrow space between the houses. I guess if you guys, you residents want to live with it, okay, that's fine with me.
Well, ultimately, no, we wouldn't want any traffic, because we feel like you had just said, Tom. But on the other hand, we do understand the premise of it. And so, contrary to what people may think, I'm not really a bad guy. All I want to do is protect my family and protect my liability and my risk. And that's all I'm trying to do. And based upon our experiences, that's what got us to this point, right? So, picking up after people's dogs, on our property, and my neighbor has done that as well. And
We all deal with that, unfortunately.
I know, but if I could,
on your video, if you can identify anybody, if you see anybody, send it to me and I'll prosecute to the fullest extent of it. I'm curious. That's one of my pet peeves.
Yeah, it really is. And Ross has dealt with it as well over the years too. So, but I mean, getting back to the matter at hand, so you guys can move on. If we can just agree to have Mr. Belmonte move some rocks when he's digging up my entire backyard, then that would probably be the best way, because he's going to have the equipment right there, and it'll save John some time trying to get a piece of equipment back there as well. So.
And could we at the same time include some encouragement for people to walk that trail and then make a turn if they wished to go to the Zim Smith trail?
Yeah, that's what Gary was saying. And there's, maybe put up a courteous sign right there, or a very cordial sign before the culvert. And Gary had mentioned he'd offered that maybe they can clear out the path a little bit down that way out to the Zim Smith. I think that would be helpful as well. So if the board is willing to do that, thank you. And I think Karen thanks you as well.
Yes. Thank you very much. I don't know if you can hear me, but
Yes.
We appreciate the board working with us. Mr. Burton, thank you very much for understanding where we're coming from, because that has been our concern all along, especially because this has been a complete misunderstanding from what we were told that path was supposed to be, to being surprised that once we had moved in a few months after, finding out that there was a discussion of that being a walking path. And that was a big shock to hear that. So yes, in a perfect world, we would prefer not to have traffic there, but understanding everybody else's viewpoint and what everybody else is saying, we are willing to compromise and work with the board. And we certainly appreciate you working with us and understanding our concerns and our position. And thank you.
She's so much more articulate than I am. So.
Okay, well, thank you. And moving
All
on
right,
to
For your
the.
time.
moving
Thank
on-
you.
Gary, can I just say one thing about something in general? I can't tell you how many times in all the years I've lived here have I heard from either people buying homes or people buying homes in developments or individual homes have been told things by realtors and developers
Yeah.
that are absolutely not true.
Yeah.
And
Me too.
you know, I mean, the perfect example was up here in Victorian Landings a couple of years ago,
Village
when
tax.
these people were told they didn't have to pay taxes. I mean, come on. I mean, and
Yeah.
anyway, that's it's
I don't-
like a,
I don't think we're that naive, but
Oh,
We-
village taxes. They were
Village
told they
tax.
didn't have to pay a village
Yeah,
tax.
yeah.
All of
yeah,
it.
yeah, we may have had one, slide by us, but I don't think we're that naive, but man, that's unfortunate that they felt that way, but anyway.
It was an
anyway,
so
thank you.
I thank you for the board. I thank you.
Thank you.
And we
thank you, board.
appreciate, yeah,
Appreciate it. Thank you.
thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thanks.
you.
Bye-bye.
Moving on to
Thank
the
you.
treasurer's report. Jess?
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Yay. Okay. All right, so as I do every month, I emailed the financial report to board members. On the back of the report that I mailed you, there's actually two reports, and the front one is the balance sheet. This time in the budget every year, I typically would give you guys like a mid-year update. And so what I did on the back of the report is I included a statement of expenditures and revenues. Gary also gave you guys something like this a couple weeks ago. So my numbers are just a little bit more current, but pretty much the same. So if you guys want to take a look at that, you can, and ask questions whenever you have a chance to look at it. Let's see, W-2s, 1099s should be out Monday or Tuesday. And I do have 3 resolutions that I need. So I'll start with the first one. In June of last year, in June of last year, a Preserve New York grant of $8,000 was approved for the Round Lake Auditorium Building Condition Report. Resolution is requested to increase revenue account A 2091 Auditorium Grant Repair and expense account A 7560.4 Culture and Rec Contractual, both by $8,000 to account for this grant. So the grant didn't actually come in yet, but because we were awarded it, we know that it's coming in, and we have Lacey Thaler, they're ready to be paid about $7,500. So if we could increase the budget to account for this, then we'll be all set. So I laid out the budget entry, and that's that.
You want a resolution to
Yes, please.
put this thing aside? I'll make the resolution.
As stated
Second.
by,
As stated, yes.
Second,
discussion? Paul?
Tom,
Yes.
Heidi,
yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Tina, Gary.
Yes.
Okay, so number 2, New York State OSC has created a new sewer fund expense account code. It is G1989.1 for office staff personal service. So resolution is requested to create and reclassify the following accounts. So we would reclassify G1320.4, which is auditor in the sewer fund. It would be changed to G1989.11, and then we would reclassify G8110.13, which is office staff in the sewer fund, and it would be changed to G1989.12.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
So just to clarify, so this really is just shifting the
Yep.
the way we account for your services and Kim's services.
Yes, it's just changing the account numbers. That's
Okay.
all it is. All it
Okay,
is.
thank you.
Paul?
Tom,
Yes.
Heidi,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Tina, and Gary.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and the last resolution for this meeting, for me, The village has received auditorium stand grant number 9157 in the amount of $125,000, which was deposited into the general fund per resolutions 215 of 2018 and resolution 92 of 2019. The board authorized use of charitable gifts reserve funds and parkland reserve funds for auditorium project expenditures to be reimbursed by the SAM grant. I did email a schedule of the project expenditures and the reimbursements to each of you. What it shows, it breaks down what was paid on the lights and the equipment, what was paid on the chairs, where exactly it came from, each expense. It looks like this, so it's all broken down. You'll have it in your email. And on the front, it shows how much from each. I don't know if you can see it. You each have it in your email. So what we need to do is just kind of redistribute the money that came in and put it back where it belongs. So resolution is requested to transfer $71,938.04 to Charitable Gifts Reserve A 230.3 and transfer $53,061.96 to the Parkland Reserve, which is in the CM fund, CM 230, to reimburse the project expenditures. And then the budget entries are on the next page.
All right, so we'd like a motion for that?
Yes, please.
So moved.
Second,
Discussion?
Who's second?
I think Tina.
Tina? Okay.
That's it for me, other than the abstract.
Yeah, so this project has been going on since Lois was working here, or I think she had just left. So back from like 2016.
Yeah.
It's nice to finally see that check come in.
You did a lot of work on this, Kim.
Oh, God.
You did a lot.
I'm so done with it.
Yes, I'm sure you did too.
That check came in and I was like,
Finally.
Great work over and over again, too.
It was painful, yeah.
yeah, it was painful.
But
Shall
Thank
we
you.
vote? All aye?
Aye.
I,
All righty, chief.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Yes.
Okay. Speaking with Kim earlier today, I never had a report last month because we had a call. So I left the meeting. So in November, we had 46 calls. That'll go down for November's minutes. And then December, we had 49 calls. We ended the year with 551 compared to 491 the year before. So we were up 60 calls last year over 2020. And that's also the most we've ever done. 2019, we had done 530. But last year was busier than that. And probably going to keep going that way because there's a lot of development going on and it doesn't seem to be slowing down very much. Last month, we took delivery of our Argo. The new Argo was supposed to come in March and we got a phone call one day saying it was in. So the guys are training on that. Once we get everybody trained and move over to that, then we'll put the old one up for sale. And hopefully we'll get a decent price for that. We also last month received a Global Foundries grant for $20,000. We're going to upgrade all our AEDs to be compatible with Malta Ambulance. So that'll work better that way. I gave Jess the check and it'll get deposited into the equipment account so that the AED should be in sometime in January or February. And then that covers basically probably 99% of the cost to upgrade.
What is that, Frank? What is the AD?
The AEDs, if you're having a heart attack so we can shock you.
Oh, AEDs. Yeah.
AED, AED.
Oh, okay, thank
Have
you.
them on every truck and every Chiefs car has them. So we replace
Gotcha.
them now. Once we get those, they'll be compatible with Malta Ambulance so that they can just unplug our machine, plug our machine on when they have to go to the hospital. Before they'd have to redo everything and start from scratch. So both departments did that so we could upgrade to be compatible. Any questions? Okay, that's it for me.
Thank you. We're moving on to auditorium, the auditorium report from Sharon, who's basking in the Bahamas. Thank you all for taking the time to review the job description for the Round Lake Auditorium Director. Put a good deal of thought. Tina?
I can't hear what you're saying over whoever's presentation is running.
I'm only hearing Gary.
Okay. Never mind. I don't know. It's gone.
What's Lucy doing? She watching TV? You okay?
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry for that.
Thank you for taking the time to review the job description for the Round Lake Auditorium Director. I put a good deal of thought into the first 7 items under responsibilities. Last year at a board meeting, I mentioned that it would be extremely helpful to address the big issues and not the smaller issues, and that the smaller issues will fall into place. I believe that the first 7 responsibilities listed will set the stage for the future. Now we have a use policy that has been approved thanks to the efforts of a team of people. The job description for the Round Lake Auditorium Director will be a helpful document for now and into the future. I made a list of items that still needed to be discussed, listed at the bottom of the job description page, and look forward to exploring solutions. Again, many people have contributed to this job description, but I felt strongly about how the responsibilities were presented. Once we come to a conclusion on this piece of business in February, we can approve a mission and update the rental policy. In the meantime, I'll continue to follow up and reaching out to artists. I can't wait to update you all at the February meeting. Okay, and after that, AP3.
Hey, Gary, can I just jump in? Is this where we're going to, are we going to talk about the position, or are we holding that until she comes back?
That was under old business auditorium manager position,
Yeah,
or is that director?
it's the director, the Sharon's position. Are we gonna revisit this, or is this all we're gonna say about what she wrote? Just because she had a couple of comments that she wanted me to make on her behalf. She
Okay,
had a couple of
maybe,
questions for the board.
okay, maybe I put the wrong thing down. I should have had director position instead of manager under old business.
Yeah, I just, you kind of said it all during reports, so maybe it's up to you when you want to talk about it. She just had a couple of comments, so I don't want to not touch on her.
Well, want to do
Comments that she wanted me to
AP3
make.
and then go back to the director, director
Sure.
or job description?
Sure.
Okay, Lydia,
Make it easy. We have nothing to report this month.
thank you.
I have a question though. A couple months ago, there was the whole discussion about the tower and having an engineer look at it. Whatever happened with that?
We had,
Yeah, turn that over to Kim.
We had an engineer come last Friday. We'd hired, we had to
Oh.
rent one of those boom lift things. So
Okay.
he was up there on last Friday. And that's the last piece of the structural report. He's gonna wrap that up and get that to us as soon as he can. I think it'll probably be a couple of weeks till we hear it. But I think the rest of the report is finished. It is Mark Thaler, and he's, kind of takes his time, but there is a deadline to get this report done. We have to get it done within the year of receiving the grant, which everybody is on their end is aware of. So I'll be a little tenacious with them and get it. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
okay, let's move on to old business auditorium director position. Kim, did you want to?
So I've been working with Sharon quite a bit. We've had some meetings with some artists and such, but she's really been focusing on the job description, and it's basically one question. It comes down to one question, and she wanted, I'll say what it is, and then she wanted you to discuss it among yourselves and come back with one voice and one sort of feeling about it. And the question is, how does the board judge success for the Round Lake Auditorium? what determines success, in your opinion? And that will help her determine what the mission is and how she should proceed with, well, a lot of things, but that's what she wanted to know.
I think that Heidi and I had made a couple comments on email, and I think we're probably just still bouncing that idea back and forth. I would guess. I don't know if Tom or Tina, Gary.
The only thing, I mean, I agree with both of your points that you guys made in the email. The only other thing I thought would be helpful is, I know we've done like the Survey Monkey with the villagers. Maybe, you know, after a few months, we could shoot out a link for them to go in and comment whether they feel like, just very general questions, you know, has it improved? Are they happy with it? You know, just to kind of gauge how the public feels like it's going. Just a thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Tom. No, go ahead. You go, Tom.
Well, I was, you know, I was kind of thinking that, what did Rumsfeld say about there's known, knowns and
The knowns
there's
and the- no,
known
unknown knowns.
unknowns?
Yeah.
And I think we're kind of like in that position where we're going to set a budget of some sort, and we're going to accept the fact that we have losses. But I think that it's going to be tough to try to assign a real hard and fast rule or metrics to what we expect. I think we just got to be a little loose. We're going in a different direction. We've got what appears to be a fairly competent manager or director, and we're going to try to change the programming. That's my sense a little bit. And at the same time, we're going to try to improve things. But we're doing something that a lot of communities do. We're providing cultural opportunities for people, and it isn't always a money-making proposition. So I think we have to kind of be a little loose on how we view this and what we can. I don't know what we can tell Sharon hard and fast that you must meet this you know, level of whatever profit loss. You know, I just don't know.
I agree. After reading Heidi's reply to me, I guess one thing I think we could do is collect some metrics this year and use those to maybe evaluate how we move forward from this year. That was kind of after I just kind of threw something out there, is just trying to think of some ideas. But then with Heidi's reply, I totally agree. But I think we could look at audience revenue versus losses, surveys and things like that, and then take some of that data and then use that to provide some direction going forward into hopefully year 2. Hopefully she sticks around for a year.
I think
personally,
I think that when Gary threw those numbers together a couple of months ago, and for some of us, it was a bit of a revelation because we had not seen such a detailed profit loss kind of ledger on some of those groups where we were essentially, you know, you're having nobody there. It was costing us $400 or $500 and we were bringing in 100. And I think Sharon has a different vision here. It doesn't necessarily mean that she's going to expect everything to be in the black, but by the same token, I think we have to just expect this to be a fluid kind of thing, and let's just see what works. And like you say, Matt, put it all together at the end of the season and see what it looks like.
I think she'd be happy with that answer. It's given her a chance to show what she can do and trust in her decision-making, what acts to bring in and be different, be sensitive to the people who live closest by, and try on some new things. So I think she'd be happy with that.
But let her know that she shouldn't feel pressure,
right,
to make this a successful venture in her first year. That she should just be willing to try things and see what works. And if I assume she's competent, she sounds like she is. And let's see what happens. She shouldn't feel that she has to turn this thing around in 1 year. I don't think that's the answer we want to, impression we want to give her.
I think she gets that. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you guys think it would make sense to, I mean, and I don't even know and this might be something to ask Sharon too, whether it's reasonable or not to collect some sort of audience type numbers. Cause I think other than sales, so I think the fact that we're drawing people, even if it's losing money necessarily, I think is something that we could at least monitor this year and use that as some data going forward. And again, it's not like we have a turnstile in the auditorium. So I get it might not be as easy as we think it is, but just to collect some, even if it's not 100% accurate, some basic audience numbers. I don't think we've had that before. I think that would be a nice thing to have to use at the end of the season going forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't think that's difficult. You know when there's 15 people in the auditorium, and you know when most of the seats are filled, and we know how many seats we have. So I think that would be a very good idea. Just, it's not the be all end all, but we should have that information to work with. Yeah, agree.
Okay.
So any other discussion on the job description? Now, am I correct in my assumption that this is up for adoption tonight? Or further discussion, or which one?
I think we had a resolution, right, from Kim?
Yeah. I just want to make sure that's correct.
If you're ready, I just kind of put it out there if we were ready to do it. If we liked how she reworded some of it, I'm sure she'd be thrilled to have it be adopted.
Yeah, I think it's at the pleasure of the mayor, if he wants to put it forward for a vote or approval, whatever. Yeah.
I think we ought to note that there's a list at the bottom of that of things that she's assuming are outside the responsibility of the director, and those things are going to have to be tackled.
Yeah, we should note that for sure.
Agreed.
Well, motion to accept. Oh, wait, Kim's already written it. Okay, be it resolved that the Village Board of Round Lake approves the auditorium director job description, resolved by me.
Second.
Who is that? Matt?
Me. Matt. Yeah.
Discussion?
How do you want to note that she still wants to discuss the other things?
I don't think that belongs in a motion, the job description.
Okay.
Motion. I mean,
Okay,
that's
all right.
something we have to remember.
Yeah. She'll remind us. Yeah.
Oh,
I don't know, well, I want to, just to discuss it a little, I don't know what is going to happen with those things that are being taken off of the job description or noted that they are above and beyond the directors. We have hired a cleaning person before, but to say that parking and cleaning and volunteers, trash removal and paper products, somehow Gary ended up, and Kim, maybe you two, dealing with paper products last year, that hopefully that wouldn't happen again. But parking and organizing volunteers, and cleaning the auditorium. Kim, you've been involved with that before. Is that coming back? That's has always been with the village?
I've in meeting with Sharon almost on a daily basis when she comes into the office. We have been speaking about cleaning and having a service and trying to powwow with, is it best to have someone that comes in every month and does a deep clean, and then we have maybe someone local who do like before and after the show. We're kind of toying with a couple of different ideas. So she's willing to sort of work out a plan, and then we gotta make that plan work. I think parking, I don't know, maybe it's not our forte, but I was kind of maybe we lean on Lydia and the group. Like they said, they were going to try to work on parking a little bit. I'd be curious to see if we could come up with some ideas that would help for this coming season.
Our
I'm not
goal
sure
is
how we-
to have a parking recommendation and report by in a couple of months. So we want to get it to you before the season.
That would be great.
Great.
Trash and paper products, we've always managed that, so
Right.
it kind of made it onto the list, but it's kind of a non-issue, so we're fine.
Okay, as long as you feel
Yeah.
comfortable with those things, absolutely.
I think so. We just gotta talk it through and really make something happen with hiring a team, you know, a service, what I mean to say. Yeah.
I'm happy to go with what she's suggesting, and it is playing to her strengths, and it's how she thinks she should run it. And if we are putting our faith in her to do it, I'd like to have her write the job description, and I think we can revisit it in a debriefing after the season and see how it worked.
Agree.
We ready to poll now?
Tom,
Yes.
Heidi,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Tina,
Yes.
and Gary.
Yes. All right, on to new business. Y'all were emailed or given a paper copy of the very draft budget with some big gaps in it that I'm not sure of yet. So anybody have any comments they wanted to bring up?
Just one
Mike?
thing, Gary, I assumed, I was looking at, and I guess I should know by now where it would be, but not to be too parochial because but it doesn't affect me. But my neighbors, that drainage project down Clark around Burlington, that's in there somewhere? Capital,
Is that in there?
I
That's a
you
good
know,
question.
I know
It-
it's not easy to find everything you need when.
No, that's a very good question. The plan currently, and Jason and Preisner is developing an RFP for the project. And the plan is to pay for it with ARP money, American Rescue Plan money. We got
Okay.
40,000 this year and getting another 40,000 next year. So you're right, that doesn't show up in here. So I don't quite know how to, I'll talk to Jess how to
Yeah, that's fine.
include that in the budget.
No, I just, like I said, you know, as we all know, navigating some of these categories, you don't know where some stuff is and where it isn't.
Yeah, let me
But
make
anyway,
that-
thank you for that.
yeah, that might
Yeah, I was
have-
gonna add the municipal building. I know you've added some money to the budget line item this year, but with the steps and everything else that's going in, it's gonna be significantly more than.
It will be that, but that, I mean, it will be so much that it will need to come out of fund balance.
Okay,
But we
Uh,
haven't gotten excuse me, Matt, we haven't gotten
Yes.
any kind of numbers on either the steps and or the ramp. I know there's a roof issue.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten any numbers on any of those things yet, though, have we?
On the ramp. I know-
No, because I don't think we really can piecemeal the project. That's kind of why I put it all under one header. And I spoke with Jason. He did come into the office about 2 weeks ago and we discussed it. And he basically said that it's really more for an architect engineer to handle rather than him. He wouldn't even write up the RFP. It's not really his wheelhouse. We can, I also spoke with the engineer who was looking at the tower on Friday, and he's a sub of Mark Thaler, basically. So he said that, you don't really come to me. You should really speak with Mark if you're going to hire an architect. He can hire me as his sub, but do it that way. We can ask Mark to have a look and write us up what he thinks we should do about it. We can go through the motions of having a completely new architect come to the table. Not my personal choice. Anyway, it's just a lot of work to get someone to look at it when we could possibly have Mark's office come and check it out more quickly. So
I just think it's important that we get a rough idea where we're going
Yeah.
with this.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I'm less concerned about some part of it than the other. But the point is, we don't really have any hard numbers and we don't have anything, I don't want to say like a guideline kind of thing. And we certainly shouldn't go out and spend, $50,000 on a master plan.
Right.
But
No,
we ought to
no.
have some rough idea how much it's going to cost to fix the roof and
Yeah,
and those front steps, which are
Right.
out of code and dangerous.
We did
Very
have,
dangerous.
one vendor, Jamando, take a look at the front steps, right?
I haven't gotten a quote from him. The only quote we do have is from Sean Rigney's group. He came and looked at the railing, and basically to recreate the railing that we have, but in aluminum, like a painted aluminum, so it wouldn't rust. I mean, it was upwards of like 30 grand, I think, just for that. Jason, when we looked at it, he was under the impression that we might be able to keep the ramp, reinforce the areas where it's crumbled, add maybe some, I don't know what words he used, but add some support elements on the side. Yes, put in some aluminum railings, but the front steps would have to just come out completely. That has to be completely rebuilt and drawn up, as a proper drawing. The roof, he spoke extensively with John about, and someone needs to get up there. John thinks, I was hoping John would be on the meeting, but John is under the impression that it's not so much the roof, but where the roof meets with some of the other elements, either the windows or the cornices or other sort of wooden structures and the flashing coming up chimneys and vents and things like that. They did look at I think it was the east side of the building there's a lot of rot on wood windows. We know that squirrels are in the records room and they will not leave. So that's gotta be, that's been going on for a while. But I think someone's got to get up there. So I'm inclined to call, Mark's office immediately and just start the ball rolling with them. With, if everybody is okay with that, just to see what we're looking at,
Yes.
That's good. The other thing I was going to add, Gary, is with the street lighting, you had a question mark next to it. I think you had budgeted 25,000 up from 20,000. The last time I had heard was middle of the year for switching over to the LEDs. So once that switch over takes place, the cost of the electricity will be about half. I believe when we approved the spend for the conversion for we have to pay for the rest of the lifespan of the existing lights that are being switched out. I think we paid for that out of the general fund, which we haven't paid yet, but it's going to be paid out. It's about $13,000. So I think the 25,000 is probably probably not going to exceed that number, but it's probably good to just throw that in there for the time being because we don't really know exactly where we're going to be at when the LEDs switch on throughout the year.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. But that might be an underspend, I guess, is my point.
As things occur to you folks, shoot me an email and I'll try to get you an answer. And I should have some revenue monies, not in the too far distance, but the comptroller actually suggests that you do your budget first before you know what your revenues are, so that you're not tailoring your budget to fit into the revenues. Municipal building repairs, we covered that already. Kim, was there anything else?
Is it thought that I should give Mark's office a call and bring them on board? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, looks like we covered all the things that were listed. Letter of credit release. This is for the roads up in Victorian Landing. We had a substantial letter of credit that we were holding until they paved the roads to our satisfaction. That has been done. And I will read, whereas the Village of Round Lake was provided with an irrevocable letter of credit in the amount of $130,000 from the Pioneer Bank on behalf of Ferone Amador LLC on November 29th, 2017, and whereas the letter of credit represented the cost of replacing or repairing portions of binder course and top course on all roads within Victorian Landing Planned Development District, as well as repairing or replacing the trench drain at the bottom of the main access road. And whereas the roads within the Victorian Landings Planned Development District have been completed and Lamont Engineers has inspected and approved the new roads, therefore be it resolved that the Round Lake Village Board of Trustees authorizes the release of the letter of credit. Resolved by the mayor.
Second.
Tom got it in first. Discussion?
Can we get just a comment from the attorney as to ready to go and everything's cool?
This is, this has been signed off on by our code enforcement officer and by our engineers. So I see no reason not to pass the motion.
I've driven it many times to make sure, and it looks good. Okay, poll?
Okay, Tom,
Yes.
Heidi,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Tina,
Yes.
Gary.
Yes. And the budget, no, the abstract. The treasurer
Let's
has,
do correspondence. We do correspondence first.
sure,
We got a nice big check for the Round Lake Auditorium yesterday from someone named Jane Meisner from East Nassau, New York, for $222 for the Auditorium General Fund. That's it.
it's a nice correspondence. Thank you. And you're
The
sending, out-
the name is familiar. Does it ring a bell with anybody
Does
else?
sound familiar and I don't know why.
Yeah, yeah,
Jane and Frank Meisner, Meissner. I
yeah.
don't know. Yeah. Anyway, I usually send folks one of those auditorium ornaments when I get a big check like that, just as a thank you. And also copying Sharon so we can maybe get them on our mailing list or maybe send them some tickets or some way to continue the relationship with them since they have been so generous, just to, not let it drop.
The 222 is interesting as well.
Yeah, I know. I don't know what that was about.
okay, approval of minutes. We have 1, 2, 3 of them.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the public hearing on, or actually, did we do the November 17th minutes?
Yeah, we have a public hearing and we'll do the minutes separately.
Okay.
Everybody was
so
here.
public
We'll do
hearing.
the hearing first. That makes sense.
Yeah. Okay.
Second.
Discussion?
All aye.
Aye.
Aye. And now I'll make a motion to approve the regular meeting from 11/17.
And I'll second that one.
Discussion?
All aye.
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 The last one is the December 1st annual meeting and workshop.
I was trying to, I think, was I at that one? I'm trying to,
No, I don't think you were, Matt.
I missed that one, yeah, so.
You were out at you were not at the 15th, the December 15th, because I just wrote those. I'm just in the middle of those.
12-1.
Oh,
Okay.
I just,
I know I missed.
I think you might have been.
Yeah, I'm looking for it. I just didn't, I don't see it. So.
Let me pull up the,
December 1.
December
Yes.
1.
Yeah, Matt, you were there.
Yep,
I was, okay, it was December 15th. Okay.
Yeah.
it was an unforgettable meeting.
Unforgettable. Oh, I guess I'll make the motion.
Okay.
I'll second it then.
Discussion?
All I,
Aye.
Aye.
All righty, next, the approval of the abstract. The treasurer has provided the January abstract for approval, which includes December prepaid invoices and January claims. The total for the January abstract is $128,029.65.
So moved. Move to approve the abstract in that amount.
Second.
Discussion?
But just one question, and I don't know if Jess is still with us. Do we need signatures? Or have we got enough?
We do need signatures.
Okay, all right, I'll stop in the morning. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
are we ready to approve? All I,
Yes. Aye.
Yes.
Moving on to village attorney comments.
The only comment I want to make is that our ability to continue with remote meetings is indefinite at this point. It was approved, and it's to continue until the end of the emergency, and that is to be determined, and there's no projected date for that. So the board has the option.
Village mayor is all talked out. Village trustees? Tom?
No, nothing for me.
No.
Heidi?
No,
That's it. Public comment.
I have one if you don't mind. Can you hear me?
Oh, Scott. Hi, Scott.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm on Danielle's phone, so.
spelled wrong.
I'm on Danielle Ignis.
Ignis.
Yeah. I just want to let everybody know that I did meet with Sharon before she went off on vacation. And, you know, she was very, I'm sure Kim knows this too from talking to her. She was overwhelmed. But I let her know that, you know, we'll take care of the local events. So that kind of took a lot off of her back. And a big help with the volunteers. I'm sure we'll have a lot of the same old volunteers as we had last year, and we'll try to improve on it a little bit. We have most of our local events like open mics and such are pretty much probably 85-90% already booked. So they're on their schedule already. So yeah, I think it's going to be, she's going to do a really great job. And I think that we're all going to work together, and this is going to be a nice, smooth year. And I do like the idea of this year kind of being a, just to see how it works here, kind of keep it almost as quiet as we can. She's already booked an opera, which I think is great, and I think she has a couple of other events that seem to fit. So just to let you know that I have been talking to her, so we're going to work together, and until we figure out some kind of I don't know if we're going to go forward with a local management. I'm going to help come up with some responsibilities for local management until we put somebody in place, and hopefully that'll be by the next meeting. We should have all that put together. So it's looking good.